Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're diving into Stephen Bartlett's The Diary of a CEO. We're going to zero in on one law in particular, Law 19. You must sweat the small stuff. Bartlett really credits this for a lot of his success.
It's interesting because it seems so counterintuitive. We live in a world that's all about these big ideas, these grand visions, but Bartlett's saying it's those tiny details, the stuff most people overlook, that really makes the difference.
Right, and you see this play out perfectly in his podcast, also called, of course, The Diary of a CEO.
Oh, absolutely. It's become wildly popular. At one point, it was even growing faster than Joe Rogan's podcast.
Which, let's face it, is no small feat. Rogan's a podcasting giant.
Exactly. And Bartlett says this success comes down to, you guessed it, sweating the small stuff more than his competitors.
So let's break that down a bit. What does sweating the small stuff actually look like in practice?
Well, his team obsesses over details that most people wouldn't even consider, like they'll research a guest's favorite music.
Really?
Yeah, they want to make sure the atmosphere is just right. Or they'll meticulously adjust the room temperature to get the best conversational flow.
Wow. That's attention to detail.
And it goes even further. They use AI-powered translation to reach a wider audience.
It's amazing how these little things that we might not even consciously notice can impact our experience.
Yeah.
You ever walk into a place and just feel inexplicably comfortable but can't put your finger on why?
All the time. Maybe it's the lighting in a store or the music playing in a restaurant. Those subtle things really add up.
Absolutely. And this principle isn't just for podcasts or businesses either. Think about Toyota.
Ah, yes, the car manufacturer.
Known for reliability and efficiency.
Right. And they've built their entire success on this philosophy called Kaizen.
Essentially the Japanese term for continuous improvement. So Bartlett's focusing on tiny details in his podcast. Toyota's applying a similar concept to their whole manufacturing process. Different playing field, same game. What's crazy is Toyota gets over 1 million suggestions for improvement every year, mostly from the regular workers on the factory floor.
Exactly. That's Kaizen in action. It's about everyone, from the top down, constantly looking for ways to make things just a little bit better.
So we're talking about a car company. When you say small stuff, what are we actually talking about? Like, are they suggesting moving the cup holders an inch to the left?
It could be that simple. They might suggest bigger water bottles to keep workers hydrated, or adjusting shelf heights to make tools easier to reach.
Yeah.
Even something like making the font on safety warnings bigger to prevent accidents.
Okay, so individually these changes might seem small, but over time.
They have a massive impact. Efficiency, safety, quality, it all improves. And there's no better example of this than the NUMMI factory.
Ooh, a story. Tell me more.
So back in the 80s, General Motors had this plant in Fremont, California. It was failing badly.
How bad are we talking?
Low quality, terrible productivity, constant labor issues, high absenteeism. It was a disaster.
Sounds like a tough one to turn around. So Toyota came in, sprinkled some Kaizen magic, and it was all fixed, right?
Not quite. What's amazing is they didn't just bring in a whole new workforce. They rehired almost 90% of the original GM employees.
Wait, they kept the same workers. That's surprising.
It is. You'd think they'd want to start fresh, with people used to their methods, but no, they kept the same workers, the ones who had been labeled unproductive and difficult.
So they changed the system, not the people. Okay, I'm hooked. Did it work? Did they actually turn this failing plant around?
The results were dramatic. Within a year, the NUMI factory went from being the worst to the best in terms of quality and productivity among all GM plants.
Seriously? In just 1 year?
Yeah. The only thing that changed was the philosophy. They implemented the Toyota production system, emphasized teamwork, and empowered workers to stop the line if they saw a problem.
That's a powerful testament to the power of Kaizen. It's not just a feel-good philosophy. It actually gets results.
Exactly. And this sweat the small stuff approach isn't just for manufacturing or business. It can be applied to any area of life where you're striving for excellence.
So how do we take this concept and make it actionable? It's easy to get overwhelmed thinking about making 1 million tiny improvements.
That's where the 1% better each day principle comes in. It's about understanding the power of compounding, making small, consistent improvements over time.
Okay, so it's less about finding some magic bullet and more about building momentum through consistent effort.
Right. Imagine you start with 100 pounds and increase it by 1% every day for a year. It might not seem like much at first, but by the end of the year, you'll have more than tripled your money.
Wow, that's compounding in action. It's a reminder that even small efforts can lead to huge results.
Exactly. And this applies to everything, from our work to our relationships to our personal growth, even something as simple as brushing your teeth.
Right. Small habit prevents bigger problems down the road. It's easy to skip a day or two and think, no big deal. But over time, that neglect can lead to serious issues.
And it's the same with any area where we want to improve. Consistent effort, even in small amounts, makes a huge difference in the long run. The question is, how do we actually implement this?
Right. It's easy to fall into that suggestion box mentality. Complain about problems without offering solutions, or have great ideas but no way to actually implement them.
Toyota has a fascinating system for this. It's called Tei-In, which basically means suggestion system. But it's so much more than just a box for ideas. It's deeply ingrained in their company culture.
So what makes their system so special?
The key is the role of the idea coach. Supervisors don't just approve or reject ideas. They act as mentors, working with employees to refine their suggestions and develop practical solutions.
I like that. It's not about saying no to an idea, but asking, how can we make this work? It's collaboration.
Exactly. And because employees know they'll have support, they're more likely to come up with valuable solutions. It's a win-win.
It is. But it sounds like it requires a lot of investment in training and mentorship.
Definitely. And that's a key takeaway. Toyota's commitment to employee involvement and training is essential for successful implementation. It's not enough to just collect ideas. You have to empower people to turn them into reality.
So it's about creating a culture that supports and nurtures ideas, not just collecting them. Speaking of support, I think there's a common misconception that motivation comes mainly from money. But that's not always the case, is it?
No, not at all. In fact, sometimes it can backfire. Bartlett illustrates this with a fable about an old woman who was annoyed by noisy children playing outside her house. Instead of asking them to quiet down, she decided to pay them to be even noisier.
Okay, that's an interesting approach. What happened?
At first, the kids loved it. They made as much noise as possible for their reward. But the old woman gradually reduced the amount she paid them. And as the reward got smaller, so did their enthusiasm. Eventually, they just stopped coming altogether.
So what was once fun became a chore once money was involved.
Exactly. It's called motivation crowding, and there's a lot of research to support it. Paying people for something they once enjoyed doing for free can actually decrease their motivation and performance.
So how do we motivate people to contribute their best ideas without relying solely on money?
Toyota's approach is a good example. They focus on building a culture where employees feel valued, empowered, and connected to the company's mission. People are intrinsically motivated to do their best, not just chasing a bonus.
It's about tapping into that inherent desire to make a meaningful contribution.
Right. And it all comes back to those key elements we've been talking about. The idea coach concept, empowering employees, providing training, and fostering a sense of shared ownership.
So it's not just about having a good idea. It's about creating an environment where those ideas can actually flourish and make an impact. And that brings us to another myth about innovation. The idea that it always comes from those eureka moments.
Oh yeah, the lone genius striking upon a groundbreaking invention in a flash of inspiration. It makes a good story, but...
But in reality, innovation is rarely that dramatic.
Right. It's usually the result of consistent effort, focus on small gains, and a culture that supports continuous improvement.
It's not about waiting for a lightning strike, but cultivating a mindset of persistent progress. Small steps, day after day.
Exactly. And that's where the Kaizen philosophy shines. It's not about revolutionary breakthroughs, but relentless pursuit of small, continuous improvements in everything.
So what's the key takeaway for our listeners? How can they apply this sweat the small stuff approach in their own lives?
Bartlett offers a simple but powerful cheat code. Consistently make small improvements and outcare the competition.
Love that. It's not about grand gestures. It's about focusing on those overlooked details that make a difference in the long run.
And caring deeply about what you do, about the people you serve, and the impact you make. Bring that passion to everything, even the seemingly mundane tasks.
Because those small acts of care, those tiny details, often make the biggest difference.
That's the power of sweating the small stuff. Not perfectionism, but recognizing that success is a journey. And those small, consistent efforts can lead to amazing things.
So as we wrap up this first part of our deep dive into Stephen Bartlett's book and his concept of sweating the small stuff, I want to leave our listeners with a challenge.
Ooh, I like challenges. Lay it on me.
I challenge each of you to find one small area in your life or your work where you can apply this principle.
It could be anything. A small improvement in your routine, a new habit, a way to boost your skills, even just a small act of kindness.
The key is to be specific, make it actionable, and commit to doing it consistently.
Don't try to change everything at once. Just focus on getting 1% better each day.
And remember the power of compounding. Those small, consistent efforts add up to amazing results.
So what will your 1% be today? It's about taking that first step, Doesn't matter how small. Just commit to that journey of getting better little by little.
It's not about being perfect, right? It's about making progress.
Exactly. And it's about those stumbles along the way. We all have them. But they're not failures. They're opportunities to learn and grow.
So true. So true.
At the end of the day, success isn't some finish line. It's not about reaching some arbitrary definition of I made it.
It's about becoming the best version of ourselves, right?
Yeah.
One step at a time.
Yeah. And who knows? Maybe those little steps will lead you to achieve things you never even thought possible.
That's the beauty of this whole sweat the small stuff idea. It's not just some business strategy, it's a way of life.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing that real fulfillment comes from the journey itself, from that constant pursuit of excellence, and from the impact we make along the way.
So well said. Well, on that note, thank you everyone for joining us on this deep dive into the power of sweating the small stuff.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
We hope you've picked up some valuable insights today, things you can actually use in your own life and work.
Because remember, success isn't a destination, it's a journey.
And that journey starts with a single step.
So what's yours going to be?
Really makes you think, doesn't it? What small step can we take today that will put us on that path toward positive change?
Right. And it could be so simple, like deciding to learn one new skill or calling up someone you haven't spoken to in ages.
Exactly. It's about realizing that even the tiniest actions can make a difference.
They create this ripple effect. It's like momentum pushing you forward on your journey.
And as we embrace this whole idea of continuous improvement, we have to remember setbacks are going to happen.
Oh, for sure.
It's inevitable, right? But they're not failures. They're opportunities to learn and grow.
It's like that saying, fall 7 times, stand up 8.
I love that.
Every time we hit an obstacle, we get a chance to step back, reevaluate, and come back stronger.
Resilience is so important in this process. It's about having that grit, that determination to keep going, even when it gets tough.
And being kind to ourselves along the way, too.
Yeah, for sure.
We're all works in progress, right? And progress isn't always a straight line.
It's so easy to get caught up in trying to be perfect. But I think true growth comes from embracing those imperfections.
Absolutely. They're what make us unique.
They're fuel for our journey.
And it's about celebrating those small wins along the way. Even a tiny step forward is still a step in the right direction.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Stephen Bartlett's The Diary of a CEO and his focus on sweating the small stuff, let's remember, success isn't a destination.
Nope.
It's a journey, a continuous journey of growth, improvement, and impact.
And it all starts with that one small step.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive, everyone. We hope you found this conversation valuable.
We hope it's giving you some inspiration to apply these ideas in your own lives.
Remember, small changes, consistently applied, can lead to extraordinary results.
Until next time, keep diving deep.
And keep sweating the small stuff.